Welcome to our channel, The Story of Civilization, where we explore the wonders of general world history. If you enjoy learning about the past, watch the full video and make sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss an update. Today, we will explore secret societies in history, myths versus reality. Let's start with a brief overview before diving into the details. For centuries, secret societies have captured the human imagination, cloaked in shadows and whispered conspiracies. From the Illuminati to the Freemasons, legends of hidden cabals secretly controlling the world have been passed down through generations. But what if everything you've heard is not quite what it seems? In this deep dive into the secret societies of history, we'll journey beyond the myths that have shaped our perceptions, revealing shocking truths about these mysterious groups. What if the Illuminati wasn't a global conspiracy, but a short-lived group of rebellious thinkers, crushed by the very system they sought to reform? Or that the Knights Templar, instead of guarding the Holy Grail, were simply soldiers caught in a deadly political power game that left them marked as traitors? Prepare for a whirlwind of revelations, where nothing is as it seems. The Freemasons, long accused of running the world from the shadows, may not have the secret keys to global domination, but instead, they were simply a brotherhood bound by mutual support and charitable causes. And what of the Rosicrucians? Are they really the keepers of hidden knowledge and mystic powers, or was it all an elaborate spiritual movement born from intellectual enlightenment? As we tear down the walls of intrigue, we'll uncover the real stories behind these societies, discovering their true missions, their rise and fall, and the enduring power of myth in shaping modern society. But hold on, just when you think you've uncovered it all, you'll find that the most dangerous myth of all might not be about these societies at all, but about the people who created them. In the end, we'll challenge the very notion of secrecy, revealing how the biggest conspiracy might just be our obsession with secrets themselves. 1. The first revelation, Shadows of the Past. Dr. Evelyn Gray, a renowned historian known for her expertise in secret societies, had always thought that the myths surrounding the Illuminati were just that, stories. Yet, while combing through the vast archives of a forgotten library buried deep in a remote European city, she stumbled upon something that made her heart race: an old, weathered manuscript, its pages yellowed with age and covered in an intricate script she had never seen before. The parchment was bound in faded leather, the kind of forgotten relic that could hold secrets lost to time. As she slowly unfurled the manuscript, her fingers trembling with a mix of excitement and dread, the weight of history seemed to press down on her. The manuscript contained cryptic references to a group she had only read about in passing, references that painted the Illuminati not as a shadowy myth, but as a far more dangerous and active force than the world had ever believed. Just as Dr. Gray began to decipher the first few lines, strange things began happening. The air around her seemed to thicken, and a lingering chill wrapped itself around her. At first, it was easy to dismiss. After all, she was in an ancient library that hadn't seen much human foot traffic in decades. But then the whispers started. Faint, hushed voices that seemed to echo just behind her. When she glanced over her shoulder, no one was there. The unsettling feeling grew more intense over the following days. Figures, cloaked in shadow, appeared in her peripheral vision, following her as she moved through the library's dimly lit hallways. Every time she looked back, they were gone, vanishing as if swallowed by the darkness. Her colleagues noticed nothing, and yet, Dr. Gray couldn't shake the feeling that her discovery had set something in motion, something far beyond her comprehension. Was it just paranoia? Or had her research into the Illuminati unearthed something far more real and dangerous than she could have ever imagined? The manuscript seemed to hold the key, but who, or what, was determined to stop her from unlocking its secrets? 2. The unexpected betrayal. Dr. Evelyn Gray, now obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the Illuminati, found herself drawn deeper into the labyrinth of history's hidden societies. Her nights were spent deciphering the ancient manuscript, while her days were consumed with research into the Freemasons, a group that seemed to have ties to every shadowy legend she encountered. But it wasn't until a chance encounter that her investigation took an unexpected turn. A man named Lucas Hartwell, a former Freemason who had been expelled years ago under mysterious circumstances, approached her with information. He had been a part of the Masonic order but had turned against them, convinced that the Brotherhood was hiding far more than it let on. As a conspiracy theorist, Lucas had spent years piecing together cryptic clues, tracking down lost documents, and investigating secret societies. To most, he was considered a madman, but his conviction and knowledge were hard to ignore. Reluctantly, Dr. Gray accepted his offer of assistance. Together, they began to unravel the history of the Freemasons. Lucas's insights, gained from years spent within the society's walls, proved invaluable. Slowly, they discovered that the Freemasons' origins were far older, and darker, than Dr. Gray had imagined. It was no longer just a society of builders and philosophers. It was a network that had survived centuries, manipulating events from the shadows, shaping governments, and quietly pulling the strings of power. But as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Dr. Gray's unease grew. There was something unsettling about Lucas, his cryptic manner, his occasional evasions, and his obsession with uncovering the true purpose of these societies. He had begun to steer their research in directions that made her uncomfortable. One evening, as they pored over an ancient map Lucas had secured, Dr. Gray discovered a hidden set of coordinates tucked away in the margin of a Masonic document. The coordinates led to a remote location in the heart of Europe, a place Lucas seemed particularly eager to visit. His enthusiasm was unnerving. When she confronted him about it, he was evasive. The more she questioned him, the more his demeanor shifted from helpful to cold and distant. Was he guiding her toward the truth? Or toward a much darker agenda of his own? In the dead of night, while Dr. Gray was reviewing their findings, she stumbled upon a chilling discovery, a letter Lucas had written, one that outlined his plan to expose the Masons, yes, but in doing so, to seize their power for himself. He believed that unlocking the secrets of the Freemasons would give him the ultimate control over the hidden societies, not just the truth. Her heart sank. Lucas wasn't the ally she thought him to be. He was using her, manipulating her every step. The ultimate betrayal had been hidden in plain sight. Now, torn between her desire for truth and her trust in the man who had once seemed like a partner, Dr. Gray had a choice to make. Would she continue her journey with Lucas, risking everything for the sake of knowledge, or expose his treachery before it was too late? 3. The Templar's Curse. The ancient temple was buried beneath centuries of rubble, hidden away in a forgotten corner of Europe, far from the prying eyes of the world. Dr. Evelyn Gray had traveled for days, braving treacherous landscapes, to reach the ruins of a long-forgotten fortress that, according to her research, was once home to the Knights Templar. It was here, in this desolate place, that she believed the final clue to unraveling the secret of the Illuminati lay. Deep beneath the crumbling stone walls, Dr. Gray and Lucas descended into the heart of the temple. The air was thick with the smell of ancient dust and decay, and the faint echo of their footsteps seemed to reverberate through the chambers, carrying with them the whispers of a bygone era. After hours of careful exploration, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its entrance concealed by a series of intricate carvings that only someone with a deep understanding of Templar symbology could decipher. Inside the chamber, Dr. Gray found a stone altar, draped in shadow. But it wasn't the altar that caught her attention, it was the inscription that ran along the stone walls. As she translated the words, her blood ran cold. What she had believed to be a myth, the Holy Grail, a symbol of eternal power, was not a cup at all, but a mysterious and dangerous artifact. The inscription spoke of an object hidden by the Templars, an artifact of immense power that had the ability to alter the course of history. Its true purpose, however, was not to offer divine enlightenment but to protect humanity from a great catastrophe. The manuscript had always told of the Grail's sacred nature, its promise of salvation. But the truth was far darker. The Grail was a key, not to eternal life, but to unlocking something far more sinister. It was said to be the source of a curse, one that had the potential to destroy everything it touched. The Templars had hidden it away from the greedy and the corrupt, knowing that its power could either save or doom the world. When Dr. Gray shared her findings with Lucas, she expected an air of revelation. Instead, he grew tense, his face shadowed with worry. Before she could ask why, the sound of footsteps echoed through the chamber, and a group of men in dark suits emerged from the shadows. They were wealthy, powerful men, their eyes cold and calculating. Dr. Gray instinctively knew they weren't ordinary treasure hunters, these were individuals who had been guarding this secret for centuries, ever since the Templars' fall. As the men advanced, one of them, their leader, spoke with a tone that chilled her to the core. "You should not have come here." This knowledge was never meant to be uncovered. Dr. Gray's heart raced as she realized the truth. This shadowy group had been guarding the secret of the Grail all along, manipulating history to keep the world in the dark about its existence. The artifact wasn't just a relic of power, it was a weapon, one that could change everything. And now that she knew its secret, they would stop at nothing to silence her. Lucas stepped forward, his demeanor shifting. He was no longer the trusted ally she had thought him to be. In that moment, Dr. Gray understood, the conspiracy ran deeper than she could have imagined. These men were not just guarding an artifact, they were protecting a legacy that stretched back through the centuries, a legacy that would kill to keep its secrets hidden. With a sudden, violent movement, the men lunged at her. She barely had time to react before she was forced to flee into the darkness of the temple's labyrinthine corridors. The ancient walls echoed with the sound of pursuit. They had uncovered the truth, but at a terrible cost. Now, with the curse of the Templars hanging over her, Dr. Gray knew she could never go back to the world she once knew. The game had changed, and there was no turning back. 4. The Secret of the Rosicrucians. Dr. Evelyn Gray had barely caught her breath from the Templar encounter when a new, even more enigmatic figure appeared in her life, one who would change everything she thought she knew about secret societies. His name was Elijah Rosewood, and he claimed to be the last living descendant of the original Rosicrucians, the legendary spiritual and intellectual movement that had flourished in the early 17th century. According to Rosewood, the Rosicrucians were not the power-hungry group of occultists history had painted them to be. Instead, they were protectors, guardians of an ancient, apocalyptic prophecy, one that foretold the downfall of humanity if certain secrets were ever unearthed. Rosewood's arrival was like a breath of fresh air for Dr. Gray, weary from her dangerous journey through the tangled web of Illuminati, Freemasons, and Templars. He was calm, charismatic, and spoke with a quiet conviction that made even the most skeptical of minds reconsider. Rosewood explained that, unlike the other societies that sought power and control, the Rosicrucians had always worked in the shadows, quietly safeguarding knowledge that, if revealed, could lead to the end of the world as we know it. The ancient manuscript she had discovered earlier was just one piece of the puzzle. There were others hidden throughout history, fragments of a prophecy that had been passed down in secret, known only to the descendants of the original Rosicrucians. As Rosewood explained it, the prophecy was clear: humanity was on the verge of repeating a catastrophic cycle, one that, if left unchecked, would bring about the collapse of civilization. Only by protecting the forgotten knowledge hidden by the Rosicrucians could the world be saved. Intrigued by the weight of his words, Dr. Gray joined forces with Rosewood, believing that the Rosicrucians were indeed the final line of defense against an unimaginable future. Together, they pieced together the remaining fragments of the ancient texts, each discovery more chilling than the last. The prophecy wasn't just about the Illuminati or the Templars, it was about a much older force, one that had been manipulating history from the very beginning. And the key to stopping it lay within the Rosicrucian secrets. However, as their research deepened, strange inconsistencies began to emerge. Rosewood, once a gentle and protective figure, began to reveal an unsettling obsession with the prophecy. His motives seemed less about saving humanity and more about controlling the narrative of the prophecy itself. Dr. Gray began to notice his increasing secrecy, the way he would steer their discoveries away from certain parts of the texts, as if he was hiding something crucial. One night, Dr. Gray uncovered a hidden passage within one of the Rosicrucian manuscripts, one that Rosewood had deliberately ignored. The passage spoke of a hidden, last truth, a revelation so powerful that the Rosicrucians had vowed never to share it, for fear of what it would do to the world. But what shocked Dr. Gray was not just the content of the passage, but the realization that Rosewood had known about it all along. His attempts to suppress this part of the prophecy were not just precautionary. They were intentional. Confronting Rosewood, Dr. Gray demanded the truth. His calm demeanor shifted, and for the first time, she saw a flash of something darker in his eyes. He admitted that the Rosicrucians hadn't just been protecting humanity from an apocalypse, they had been preparing for it. But not to stop it. To ensure that when the prophecy came to pass, they would be the ones to wield its power, bending the fate of the world to their will. Dr. Gray's stomach churned as she realized the horrible truth. Rosewood had been manipulating her, using her to uncover the very knowledge he needed to seize control of the prophecy. The Rosicrucians had never been the protectors they claimed to be. They had been the architects of their own vision of the world's end, shaping history to ensure that they would be the ones standing at the center of it all when the final chapter unfolded. Now, with the last piece of the puzzle in her hands, Dr. Gray was faced with a terrifying decision. Could she trust Rosewood and help him fulfill the prophecy, or was she destined to stop him before he destroyed the very fabric of the world she had fought so hard to protect? The lines between truth and manipulation had never been more blurred, and the stakes had never been higher. 5. The Power of Myth. As Dr. Evelyn Gray continued to dig deeper into the labyrinth of secret societies, she began to realize something that unsettled her more than anything she had uncovered so far: the myths surrounding these groups, especially the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and the Rosicrucians, were far more powerful than any truth she had discovered. The stories of these societies had evolved over centuries, morphing into larger-than-life conspiracies that had taken on a life of their own, fueled by the public's obsession with shadowy figures pulling the strings behind world events. But what was most troubling was how the myth itself had become a force, an unstoppable, self-fulfilling prophecy. It was no longer just the ancient texts or the forgotten manuscripts that shaped history, it was the myths themselves. People believed that secret societies controlled governments, manipulated economies, and orchestrated global events. They didn't need proof, faith in the myth was enough. The more these ideas were passed from generation to generation, the more they embedded themselves into the collective psyche, taking root in every corner of society. Pop culture, books, documentaries, and movies all reinforced the idea that the world was being quietly steered by a shadowy elite. The myth had become a truth in its own right. But as Dr. Gray's research progressed, she began to see how dangerous this myth-making had become. Ordinary people, from conspiracy theorists to everyday citizens, unknowingly began to reinforce the myth with their actions. Each time someone whispered about the Illuminati or pointed fingers at the Freemasons as the hidden rulers of the world, they were adding to the myth's power. The more the myth was perpetuated, the stronger its grip on reality became. It was as if these societies were being defined not by their true history, but by the fiction woven around them. Dr. Gray had become a part of this web herself. The manuscript she had uncovered, once a tool for uncovering the truth, had now been transformed into just another piece of the myth, its secrets distorted by those who sought to feed the flames of conspiracy. As the myths grew more elaborate, they overshadowed the historical reality she had spent years uncovering. She found herself caught in a vicious cycle, where the lines between fact and fiction blurred, and the myth began to write its own history. Her mind raced with questions. How could she expose the truth when the myth was already so deeply ingrained in society's consciousness? How could she convince people that the real power didn't lie in these shadowy societies, but in the myths themselves, which had manipulated generations into seeing them as all-powerful? One night, as she reviewed her notes, Dr. Gray was struck by a chilling thought. The myth was no longer just a tool of control for those who had created it, it was a force of its own. The belief in these secret societies and their supposed global domination had given them an almost supernatural power. The myth had become a reality, feeding off of itself and growing stronger with each passing year. As Dr. Gray prepared to reveal the truth, she realized that her greatest challenge would not be uncovering the secrets of the Illuminati or the Freemasons, but convincing the world that they were not the puppet masters everyone believed them to be. How could she dismantle a myth that had become so powerful that it no longer needed any evidence to thrive? The world had already decided the truth. It was too late to undo the damage. With each step closer to the truth, Dr. Gray was beginning to question whether it was possible to stop a myth that had taken on a life of its own. The real battle wasn't over secret societies. It was over the power of belief. And as she faced the weight of her discoveries, Dr. Gray knew that the most dangerous thing in the world wasn't a shadowy cabal, it was the myth that had convinced everyone it existed in the first place. 6. The Hidden Puppet Master. The deeper Dr. Evelyn Gray delved into the secret societies, the more she realized that the true power behind the shadows wasn't what it seemed. While most believed the Illuminati, Freemasons, or Templars held the reins of global control, Dr. Gray uncovered something far more shocking, a hidden puppet master, a person who had been orchestrating the world's events all along, and they were someone with no ties to any secret society whatsoever. It started with a letter, tucked away in an obscure archive that no one had thought to examine. It was from a high-ranking Freemason leader, written in the early 1800s, addressed to an unknown recipient. As Dr. Gray deciphered the faded text, she realized it contained a startling admission: the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and the other societies weren't the masterminds of global influence. Instead, they were being manipulated by a single individual. A shadowy power broker who had successfully used the myth of the Illuminati to control world events for centuries. This individual, whose identity remained hidden beneath layers of deception, had understood the public's insatiable hunger for conspiracy. By subtly shaping the narrative of secret societies, this person had created the illusion of a grand, all-encompassing network pulling the strings of the world. The myth of the Illuminati and other societies had distracted everyone from the real force at work, a person in plain sight, operating behind the scenes with no need for secret rituals or hidden agendas. As Dr. Gray pieced together the clues, she discovered that this puppet master had been involved in shaping key historical events, from wars to political revolutions, economic collapses to technological advancements. Every major shift in history had been carefully orchestrated to maintain the illusion of control. The myth of these societies had been a decoy, and while the world focused on shadowy figures in darkened rooms, the real power broker had quietly steered events in their favor, always a step ahead. Excited by her discovery, Dr. Gray felt the weight of this knowledge pressing down on her. The world had been living a lie, and exposing this puppet master was the key to breaking the chains of manipulation that had bound humanity for centuries. She prepared her findings, ready to share them with the world, an explosive revelation that would shatter everything. But just as she was about to release her bombshell, the unthinkable happened. The person she had been tracking, the puppet master, vanished without a trace. Every lead, every clue, every thread she had followed disappeared as though it had been erased from existence. The archives she had accessed were sealed tighter than ever, and even the letter she had uncovered seemed to be gone, as though it had never existed at all. Panic surged through Dr. Gray as she realized the depths of the conspiracy. This person had never intended to be found. They had woven themselves into the fabric of history so seamlessly that their absence was just as untraceable as their presence. With no evidence left to pursue, Dr. Gray was left with nothing but the lingering question, who was this puppet master, and had they known all along that their secrets would never be revealed? Frustrated and shaken, Dr. Gray found herself trapped in a terrifying truth. The puppet master was not only real but had controlled everything from the very beginning. And now, without a trace of their identity, it seemed that the greatest conspiracy of all had no end. The world was still in the dark, and the puppet master was still pulling the strings, hidden once again in plain sight. 7. The Return of the Illuminati. Just when Dr. Evelyn Gray thought she had uncovered the last of the secrets, the shadowy puppet masters, the myths that had come to life, and the hidden truths of secret societies, something far more unsettling happened. News began circulating of a new group calling themselves the Illuminati. Unlike the shadowy conspirators of the past, these individuals were loud, brazen, and unapologetically public in their claims. They didn't hide in the shadows. They were on social media, hosting rallies, publishing manifestos, and speaking openly about their intentions. The world, which had long whispered about the Illuminati, now had a voice to fear. The group declared that they had resurrected the ancient order, but with a new, revolutionary goal. They claimed that their mission was to expose the true nature of the world's power structures, to tear down the systems that secretly controlled governments, corporations, and the global economy. According to them, the Illuminati was not a group seeking power, but one that had once existed to challenge the status quo, an order that had been suppressed by the very elites they now sought to dismantle. They promised a world free of the invisible rulers, revealing the truth that had been hidden for centuries. At first, Dr. Gray was skeptical. She had spent years uncovering the facts and debunking the myths, and now it seemed that another group had emerged, using the very name she had worked so hard to deconstruct. She attended one of their public meetings, intrigued and wary. The members were charismatic, well-spoken, and filled with conviction. They were well-educated, seemingly driven by a higher cause, and presented themselves as the true heirs of the original Illuminati's ideals. However, as Dr. Gray dug deeper into their rhetoric and actions, she began to uncover something unsettling. Their calls for transparency and justice didn't seem to align with their behavior. They made grand promises of truth and equality, but their methods were increasingly authoritarian. They had begun to target individuals, even entire corporations, who disagreed with their views, forcing compliance through pressure, manipulation, and fear. Despite their claims to expose corruption, they were rapidly accumulating power themselves. Dr. Gray faced a chilling question: were these new Illuminati truly trying to expose the world's power structures, or were they simply another group attempting to manipulate history for their own gain? As she traced their connections, she found troubling links to wealthy elites, political figures, and media moguls, people who seemed to be feeding the flames of this new revolution. Were they secretly backing this group in order to shift public perception, control the narrative, and maintain power through a new guise? The most alarming discovery came when Dr. Gray uncovered an internal document. It was a manifesto from the group's leadership that seemed to echo the language of the original Illuminati, the desire to infiltrate and control not just governments but all aspects of human life, economics, education, and even culture. The new Illuminati had not resurrected the ancient order to bring transparency, but to subvert society in a more modern, more subtle way. They were playing a different game, but the goal remained the same: control. Now, Dr. Gray was faced with an agonizing choice. Could she expose this new group for what they truly were, or would doing so play right into their hands? The more she uncovered, the more she realized that this resurrection of the Illuminati was not an answer, it was a trap. The world, so eager to believe in conspiracies and shadowy rulers, was once again being manipulated. The myth of the Illuminati, so deeply ingrained in the public consciousness, had been hijacked by those who sought to exploit it for their own ends. As she prepared to confront the modern Illuminati and reveal the truth, Dr. Gray could only wonder, had history truly come full circle, or was she watching the beginning of a new chapter? One in which the lines between reality and myth, power and revolution, had become so blurred that the truth might never be uncovered at all? 8. The Final Conspiracy. Dr. Evelyn Gray had barely managed to wrap her mind around the new Illuminati, their manipulative tactics, and the endless web of lies she had been unraveling for months. Yet, just when she thought she had reached the end of the road, she discovered something far more terrifying, something that shattered everything she thought she knew. The pieces of history, once scattered across ancient manuscripts, hidden letters, and long-lost archives, began to align in a way that was impossible to ignore. As Dr. Gray dug deeper, following leads from the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and the Knights Templar, she uncovered a shocking truth: these societies had never been separate entities at all. They were all part of a far older, far more dangerous cabal, one that had secretly governed world events for centuries. The cabal had existed long before the Illuminati, Freemasons, or Templars were even formed. Their origins reached back to ancient times, long before the rise of modern civilization. The cabal had been an underground society, working in the shadows, manipulating events and shaping history with a singular purpose in mind, not world domination, as the myths and conspiracy theories suggested, but something much more insidious. What Dr. Gray uncovered was nothing short of apocalyptic. The true purpose of this ancient cabal wasn't to control or conquer, it was to prevent a disaster so catastrophic that the very survival of humanity itself hung in the balance. The cabal had spent centuries orchestrating world events, carefully maintaining the balance of power to keep a much darker force at bay. This disaster wasn't a war, nor was it a global economic collapse. It was something far worse, an ancient, forgotten cataclysm tied to the fabric of reality itself. Dr. Gray uncovered references to an event called the Convergence, a moment in time when the barriers between dimensions would weaken, allowing an unfathomable force to break free. The cabal's true task had been to ensure that this disaster, this otherworldly entity, never reached the surface of the world. As Dr. Gray pieced together the fragments of this terrifying conspiracy, she realized the cabal's efforts were responsible for some of history's most significant events. Wars, revolutions, and even the rise and fall of civilizations. These events weren't just about gaining power, they were about controlling the delicate balance of forces that kept the world from unraveling. The Illuminati, Freemasons, and Templars weren't just pawns in a global power game, they were agents of a much older, hidden order that had been trying to avert the worst crisis humanity could ever imagine. But the twist was even darker than Dr. Gray could have ever imagined. The cabal's efforts had been failing. As time went on, the barriers that kept the disaster at bay were weakening. The more Dr. Gray uncovered, the more she realized that the cabal had been fighting a losing battle. The convergence was approaching, and no matter how much control they had maintained, the end of everything seemed inevitable. All the power, all the manipulation, had it been for nothing? As she tried to process this final revelation, Dr. Gray found herself caught in the most dangerous situation of all. The cabal, desperate to prevent anyone from knowing the truth, would stop at nothing to silence her. But the real question haunted her: could she expose the cabal and risk hastening the disaster they had worked so hard to prevent? Or should she remain silent, leaving the world to its fate, knowing that even the most powerful secrets might not be enough to save them from what was coming? Dr. Gray now stood at the edge of humanity's last hope, and its greatest fear. What the cabal had hidden for centuries wasn't just about power or control. It was about survival itself. And the truth, as terrifying as it was that the real conspiracy wasn't about ruling the world, it was about saving it. But who would believe her when she told them? Would anyone even care when the convergence was upon them? 9. The dangerous revelation. In the quiet of the night, Dr. Evelyn Gray finally uncovered the final piece of the puzzle, a discovery that would change everything. Hidden within an ancient, dust-covered chest in the depths of a forgotten library was a manuscript unlike any she had encountered before, a relic from the very first Freemasons, long thought lost to history. The moment Dr. Gray opened the pages, her breath caught in her throat. This was the key to everything. The ultimate revelation that would dismantle everything she thought she knew about secret societies. The manuscript was filled with strange symbols and cryptic language, but as she carefully translated its contents, the truth became horrifyingly clear. The true purpose of the Freemasons, and indeed all secret societies, was never about power, domination, or control. It was about protecting the world from a dark secret, a knowledge so dangerous that the very existence of humanity was at stake. The Freemasons had not formed to rule the world, they had formed to shield it from an ancient, world-changing secret, one that if revealed could bring about the destruction of civilization itself. The manuscript detailed the existence of an ancient, forbidden knowledge, an artifact so powerful, it could reshape reality itself. The Freemasons, along with other secret societies, had been guarding this secret for centuries, preventing it from falling into the wrong hands. The artifact had the ability to warp time, manipulate minds, and tear apart the very fabric of existence. It was a force beyond human comprehension, and the Freemasons had pledged to protect it at all costs. But as Dr. Gray read the final lines of the manuscript, a chilling realization struck her: this knowledge was not meant to stay hidden forever. The document hinted at an event, a moment in time when the artifact would be revealed, and the world would have to face its consequences. The secret society's role wasn't just to guard the artifact, but to prepare humanity for a time when it would be forced to confront the dark power it contained. As Dr. Gray processed the weight of this revelation, a cold chill ran down her spine. She had spent years uncovering the history of secret societies, but now she realized that she had stumbled upon a truth that could not be shared. The artifact was real, and if she exposed this secret, the world would never be the same. Just as she began to gather her thoughts and plan how to protect the knowledge she had uncovered, the first shadow moved. At first, it was subtle, a figure lurking in the corner of her vision, a presence that seemed to follow her wherever she went. Then, the whispers began, frantic, urgent voices that seemed to speak from the shadows, warning her to stop. But it was too late. The moment the manuscript was revealed, Dr. Gray became the most dangerous person alive to those who had sworn to protect the secret. A mysterious organization, one she had never heard of, now hunted her relentlessly. Their agents were everywhere, disguised as ordinary people, blending into the crowd, but always watching. The very air around her seemed to crackle with tension. The organization had been waiting for someone to uncover the truth. Now, with the knowledge in her hands, Dr. Gray was the last obstacle in their path. They would stop at nothing to retrieve the manuscript and silence her before she could expose the dangerous secret. In a desperate attempt to flee, Dr. Gray found herself trapped in a deadly game. The streets became a maze of pursuit, every face a potential threat, every shadow a possible assassin. The walls seemed to close in as she realized the enormity of what she had uncovered. The secret was too dangerous to ever be revealed, and the cost of knowing it was far higher than she could have ever imagined. With the manuscript clutched tightly in her hands, Dr. Gray was forced to make a terrifying choice. She could run, disappearing into the shadows with this knowledge, hiding it away from the world, or she could confront the organization and risk everything to expose the truth. But no matter what she chose, one thing was clear: there was no going back. The dangerous revelation had set a chain of events into motion that no one could stop, and the hunt for the truth would never end. 10. The shocking finale: the myth is the truth. Dr. Evelyn Gray was on the run, pursued by shadowy figures, her every move calculated and dangerous. The final piece of the puzzle, the manuscript revealing the truth about the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and the ancient cabal, had ignited a chain reaction that she couldn't stop. She was now a fugitive, hunted by a mysterious organization, desperate to expose the final truth to the world, the truth she had spent years uncovering. But in the moments leading up to her greatest revelation, she was confronted by a figure who stopped her cold. Standing in the dimly lit alley where she had hoped to make her escape, the figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar face. It was Lucas Hartwell, the former Freemason and conspiracy theorist who had once seemed like her ally. But now, as the realization struck her, everything fell into place with terrifying clarity. Lucas had been the mastermind behind it all. He had orchestrated the entire narrative, manipulating Dr. Gray into discovering the very truths that would expose the world's hidden history. Did you really think you were the one uncovering these secrets? Lucas's voice was calm, almost mocking. You've been playing right into my hands from the start. Every step you've taken, every discovery you've made, it was all part of the plan. The words hit Dr. Gray like a punch to the stomach. Her mind raced as she tried to comprehend the enormity of the betrayal. Lucas, the man who had appeared so helpful, had known all along that she would uncover the secrets he had so carefully planted. He had fed her just enough truth to keep her on track, but it was never about exposing the power of secret societies or the Illuminati. It was about something far more profound, far more dangerous. Then, the real shock came. Lucas smiled coldly as he revealed the twisted truth. The so-called secret societies, their myths, their conspiracies, they were never the point. They were always part of a far greater plan. The real power has never been in controlling governments or economies, or manipulating wars. No, the real power is in controlling the narrative. It's in the people's need for secrets, for mysteries, for something to believe in. The myths themselves have been the true force driving history, shaping humanity's path. The words echoed in Dr. Gray's mind. She had spent years uncovering the truth, seeking to expose the powerful figures who had manipulated history from the shadows. But what Lucas revealed was even more staggering. The real conspiracy wasn't about controlling the world, it was about maintaining humanity's insatiable desire for secrets, for hidden knowledge. Throughout history, people had built up these societies, these myths, to keep themselves in check, to justify the structures of power. The myth of secret societies had become more powerful than the men behind them. It had become the true force shaping the world. You see, Lucas continued, I didn't create the Illuminati or the Freemasons. I merely understood what they had become, symbols of the human need for control through mystery. The more people believe in the secret societies, the more power they give them. The more they fear the Illuminati, the more they empower them. This isn't a conspiracy. This is human nature, and I've been guiding it all along. Dr. Gray's stomach churned with the realization. She had been chasing ghosts, running after secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. She had thought she was exposing the truth, but in doing so, she had only reinforced the myth. The very myth that Lucas and others like him had crafted. Now, she faced the ultimate choice, to expose Lucas and the truth she had discovered, or to walk away from everything she thought she knew. In the end, the truth was not what had been hidden in ancient manuscripts or whispered in shadowy corners. The truth was that the power of secrets, the power of myth, had shaped the world more than any real conspiracy ever could. With the weight of this knowledge pressing down on her, Dr. Gray understood that the final revelation wasn't about stopping a global conspiracy. It was about understanding that the real power had always rested with the people's need for secrets. The myths they created, the stories they told themselves to make sense of a chaotic world. The secret societies, the Illuminati, the Templars, all of it had been a reflection of this need. And now, that myth had become the reality.